Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we're back again with another episode of great champions that I hate to play, and it's quite easy. And before we get into the video and discuss our next victim, once again I will emphasize the fact that I do know that these are not bad champions. The comment section in the previous videos have been an actual epic war zone, and the biggest thing that I cannot understand is the simple fact that just because I don't like to play those champions, people think that I think those champions are bad. The name of the video in itself implies that I realize these are good champions. They're champions that are great, I just haven't taken much liking to them and I don't enjoy using them in contest for the reasons I state later on. Not once I have tried to imply that these champions suck, you shouldn't rank them, you shouldn't use them, or they will not be helpful. Same goes for this current champion. And with that, we're going to be taking a look at Sissy Hands Hulk. So quite anticlimactic result of an epic name. Hulk Ragnarok should technically imbue damage, destruction, and kind of like crazy carnage-like power. But he is in fact a bit of a sissy hands with a quite trash block proficiency, can take a punch, and is, well, underwhelming to say the least. Right, so if I have to sum up Hulk in kind of like a brief statement, he is an absolute pile of garbage champion with one great redeeming ability that completely saves the champion. Point being is, if you take Face Me out of the utility set Gulk currently has, nobody would use him, nobody would want him, and he would remind you a 2015 champion that is due for a rework, because every single ability other than Face Me is fairly, well, underwhelming. So his signature ability is somewhat decent, okay? It gives a decent potent fury or a good amount of heal whenever either you or your opponent drops down to 20%. So I actually kind of, I'm alright with the awakened ability. I think it's not the worst awakened ability. I think it gives a bit more spice to the character, and that is like the only thing around all of that that I can kind of say, yeah, it's not too bad of an idea for kind of like Hulk champion. Ideally, if you had a better way how you can control it yourself, whether you get heal or whether you get fury. But all of that being said, so obviously he's poison immune, but everything else this champion has aside from Face Me, that smash mechanic is annoying when you face Gladiator Hulk as a defender, but when you're actually using Gladiator Hulk offensively, typically it doesn't really do all that much for you because it kind of like switches on, switches off, and frequently you can't even really adapt your playstyle to utilize this Face Me to the best of the ability. If it happens to activate when you're kind of like launching the attack anyways, and it's fine, but it's not like a practical skill to use in the fight. At least for me, definitely I haven't managed to kind of like time all of these Face Me's to take full advantage of the fact that I'm unblockable and I can technically kind of ram into the opponent, so on and so forth. But that does give him some damage, but again, that damage all of round is extremely underwhelming if Face Me is not active. Now, heavy attacks gain additional attack, cool, and increase the crowd exam by 15. That's not too bad. So the heavy attack hits a bit harder. Again, nothing too special there, no kind of like big piece of utility. And his special attacks, level 1 has heal block and level 2 has Enryway. That Enryways for 5 seconds. And if I'm not mistaken, if we can take a look at the Stealth Suit Spidey, let's just find him. And let's check out Stealth Suit Spidey's Enryway, which we all can agree is the most useless out of his pre-fight abilities. And web cartridge debuffs. Where are these debuffs? Flash Foam. Vulnerability, slow debuff, Enryway for 3.75 seconds. So Stealth Suit Spider-Man Enryway, which everybody universally agrees to be pretty much useless and nobody ever uses in decent scenario, is effectively just as long as Gladiator Hulk's level 2 Enryway. And he can access it quicker and easier than Gladiator Hulk can, because he can access this Enryway just by finishing a combo, versus Gladiator Hulk has to drop a level 2. For whatever reason, when I start a discussion, people always tend to mention this anyway, and it's like, yeah, but it's so good, it's so useful, like it's a really cool ability to have. And I'm like, is it though? Those 4 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever, are not nearly long enough for that to be kind of effective form of power control, because it's on level 2, you can't refresh it, and to get back to it, obviously it's not a horrible thing to have, but it's nothing extraordinary, and there's definitely a lot missing from that level 2 in particular. Level 1 again has heal block. Heal block is arguably the best piece of utility, I think, outside of face me that the guy has, and yeah, and he has a heal block on level 1, but that doesn't really mean all that much in itself if the champion has underwhelming toolkit outside of that. Like, Red Skull can access that long of a heal block with like a heavy attack or something. Doesn't make Red Skull any more valuable, or nobody's talking about Red Skull's heavy attack. So again, it's just a fairly basic vanilla, completely outdated champion with one good ability. Face Me obviously is fantastic. When Face Me is active, basically you have opponent under taunt, all of the damage you take you regenerate 70% from, plus recovery mastery increase it even further, and unlocks this whole new dimension to the character where you can deal with passive degeneration, with EMP modification, so on and so forth. But if you cannot or have not triggered your Face Me, he's one of the kind of weaker hitting champions. Being Hulk, I mean, if there's one thing you expect from a Hulk-like champion, it's damage, right? That's the one thing Hulk has. He can't fly, right? He doesn't have laser vision, nothing like that. He can hit hard. That's like the one most dominant thing about Hulk. He's angry, should be getting lots of furies, and he can hit hard. Well, this softy pants doesn't, even though he has the Ragnarok in his name, that makes it even more fun. So there we go. I just find him completely useless champion. Like, arguably all of his other abilities I would much rather replace with original Hulk and put Face Me in it. Like, that is my one kind of like biggest wish list idea, is take the Face Me ability out of this champion and put it in a good champion, put it in a usable champion. Because everything around this Face Me ability in this champion is absolute, well, dumpster fire. Like, yeah, if we didn't have Face Me, and if you would put a regular Hulk next to Gladiator Hulk, Hulk wins. Like, the old 2015 champion wins to this modern crappy version that doesn't do much because he can't throw a punch. And that is the thing that kind of like pisses me off. And the thing that pisses me off alongside that is because of this Face Me ability, obviously this champion has gained quite a lot of popularity among the people, and everybody says like, he's so fantastic, he does so much for me. You know, Face Me is fantastic. Face Me ability does so much for you. Hulk in itself, if anything, is holding you back. Like, literally, you could put that Face Me ability in almost any other champion and get better results out of it, because the rest of the abilities this guy has are pathetic. And the fact that this champion is still so valuable in the game because Face Me ability is unique and there's pretty much nothing else like that in game is quite annoying, to be honest. Like, this is a garbage champion saved by one good ability, and the fact that there is no alternative really to this guy. Like, if you're facing Variant 1 big Starburst path, it's kind of like you have to use Gladiator Hulk, and hereby he's valuable. Because yes, you can use other champions and constantly potion up, and yeah, and that's it. As soon as there's another champion that has basically a Face Me mechanic built in, and even Medicore toolset, this guy is going to be pretty much forgotten because he has nothing else going on for him. It's kind of like Crossbones and Guillotine 2099. Crossbones, people still kind of held in somewhat decent high value because he doesn't crit, and that was a unique thing. Therefore he could deal with like spiked armor stuff or terminal velocity, which come up recently, or some other things. He always kind of tend to pop up like, oh, he's a good Mr. Sinister counter because he obviously doesn't crit, right? Well, yes, but actually now you have Guillotine 2099 who also doesn't crit and is a good champion. Therefore Crossbones, stock has absolutely bombarded, and nobody has any need or wish to use or rank Crossbones, but rather wait for guild in 2099. And same fate inevitably, I really do sincerely hope, is gonna come to Hulk Ragnarok, because effectively he's junk. Face Me is a great ability, Face Me is a good ability, all respect to Face Me, but Hulk Ragnarok without Face Me, or in any matchup where he can't activate Face Me, is completely garbage. It would be completely subpar meta champion, and just because of that, my personal kind of attitude to Gladiator Hulk is, it's good to have him until we get a better option with similar ability to Face Me, but meanwhile I would personally prefer to keep him at as low rank as possible. Now, all that being said, if I inevitably end up taking this guy to rank 2 because it's a science class and I don't have any good duped science champions that I could rank up for prestige reasons, that might be a case, but that would not be a decision I make with an easy heart. I really do not like this guy, do not enjoy using him. I think that he has gotten people's love unfairly just because of one lucky shot good ability, and the rest of the champion is junky. And yes, again, that makes him a great champion currently in game. That makes him good. Face Me ability. But everything around Face Me ability stinks donkey bottom. And yeah, that is pretty much what I think. I think he is essentially usurping the Face Me ability and the rest of the aspect of actually playing him, what his special attacks do, what his abilities are. It's pretty much useless. It's almost that he doesn't have anything. But Face Me is great. And Face Me has value. And the fact that he had this Face Me ability, even back in June, half a year ago, landed him in my top 5 science champion list. Because that is a really, really valuable ability, which make him good, unfortunately. But, because it's kind of like a package deal, right? I can't say that Face Me is fantastic and ignore this champion altogether. They come in between themselves. So yeah, that is effectively Gladiator Hulk. An absolute wimp of a Hulk. He's like the Hulk that got beat his ass by Thanos so hard that it legit kind of like preventing him from coming out in Infinity War, right? That is how he fights. But yeah, so we have the Sissy Hulk over here who has Face Me, and therefore he's a good champion. He's a great champion, he's useful, he can save you units, he will save you units, but he sucks. I mean, yeah, I just don't like him at all. Now, that all being said, and done, we have to designate our next victim to make sure you guys stay tuned and stay entertained. And for the next Great Champions That I Hate episode, we're going to go, I initially was thinking of going with Darkhawk, but I changed my mind. For next champion basically in this series, this is going to trigger so many people, is Namor, right? It's simple as that. He's a great champion, without a doubt, but he brings absolutely no joy to use. Maybe within first 5 times you try playing him. But either way, everything else I have to say about this guy I'm going to keep to the next episode. So if you are absolutely in love with Namor, definitely stay tuned, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the Namor diss. But that will do for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. See ya.